Have you ever felt like you're constantly justifying yourself to people who don't even deserve your silence? As if every move you make needs explanation and every emotion must be controlled so you don't look weak. Life pressures you to stay calm, but inside chaos is real. The worst part is that no one sees this silent collapse happening within you. And when they do notice, it's too late. You're already exhausted from holding it all together. What if true power lies not in speaking, but in knowing when to stay silent? What if your strength isn't in reacting, but in staying unshaken amidst the storm? Maybe you're searching for peace in all the wrong places, outside, when everything begins inside. The Stoics knew this. They trained their minds to stay firm while the world crumbled around them. If you want to win your battles without losing your peace, subscribe now. Here you'll learn how the greatest minds in history faced internal wars with clarity, strategic silence, and emotional mastery. This is where ancient wisdom meets modern struggle. And with each topic, you'll understand how calm can become your most powerful weapon. It all begins now, with you choosing transformation. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul remains unconquered when it refuses to be disturbed." This quote reveals a forgotten truth. The mind is only strong when it learns not to react immediately. Mastering your mind isn't about repressing emotions, but observing before acting. And that can only happen in the space of inner silence. It's there that true emotional strength is born. Imagine someone surrounded by constant criticism, at work, at home, online. That person feels the urge to scream, to fight back, to prove themselves, but instead, they breathe, remain silent, and observe. Not because they're weak, but because reacting would mean giving away control. In not reacting, they protect themselves, conserve energy, and disarm the attacker. The Stoic lesson is simple. Nothing can truly hurt us unless we allow it. When we cultivate strategic silence, we create a buffer between what happens and how we feel. And within that buffer lies freedom. A mind trained in silence is like an invisible shield, firm without aggression, strong without needing to prove anything. Self-discipline begins with the decision not to answer chaos with more chaos. It's choosing silence in the face of screaming. That choice changes everything. It takes you out of conflict and brings you into clarity. You don't need to conquer the world, just the urge to react to everything. And that's a victory no one can take from you. Maybe you're in a phase where everything seems to provoke you. Words, attitudes, glances. But what if you turned each provocation into an exercise in mastery? What if every silence was actually invisible strength training? Silence isn't weakness, it's wisdom dressed in calm. Those who master it, master themselves. And this is precisely where the Stoic path differs from the world's teachings. It's not about winning by shouting louder, but by sinking deeper into stillness. Now that you've understood the power of silence, get ready to discover how emotional resilience is built day by day. Seneca wrote, "It's not because things are difficult that we do not dare, it's because we do not dare that they are difficult." This quote breaks a common illusion, that suffering is what destroys us. What really destroys us is how we resist it. Emotional rigidity, when confronted with life's pressure, shatters. Flexibility, however, bends, but does not break. Picture someone going through a painful breakup, an unexpected layoff, or a betrayal. The first instinct is to resist, to deny, to rage, to harden against everything. But the more they resist, the more they shatter inside. Until one day, they realize that resilience isn't about fighting the inevitable. It's about adapting, healing, and moving on. Not as before, but with greater awareness. Stoic philosophy shows us that resilience is like bamboo in the wind. It doesn't fight the storm, it dances with it. Accepting what cannot be controlled is the first step to reclaiming what matters, mastery of the mind. And that's only achieved in practice. One release at a time, one surrender at a time, one conscious choice at a time. You might be going through something hard today. But the Stoic question isn't, why did this happen to me? It's, how will I choose to respond? The answer reveals your strength. Resistance creates friction. Adaptation creates clarity. True resilience isn't about staying the same, but remaining whole, even as everything changes. Maybe you're trying to appear strong, pretending nothing affects you, but pretending isn't strength, it's exhaustion in disguise. What if, instead of resisting, you learned to breathe and accept? Not as someone giving up, but as someone transforming. Because conscious acceptance doesn't weaken, it empowers. And with that emotional foundation, we move forward. If the first step is silence, the second is acceptance. Now that you understand what resilience truly means, let's explore how to protect yourself from emotional exhaustion caused by the expectations of others. Epictetus said, "It's not things that disturb us, but our opinion of them." This quote exposes a blind spot. Almost all suffering comes from expecting too much from those who have little to give. We build expectations, idealize outcomes, and when reality shows up, it doesn't match. The problem isn't what happens, and it's what we believed should happen. Imagine someone hoping for recognition from a boss who never praises, or affection from an emotionally distant partner. Each day they feel frustration, irritation, guilt. The pain isn't in the situation itself, it's in what they imagined it should be. The expectation becomes an emotional prison where the jailer is invisible, but very real. The Stoic teaching is direct. Give up control over what's external and take full command of what's internal. Don't create mental scripts of how others should behave. Build emotional discipline to deal with how they actually behave. Expectations are projections, and every projection charges you when it's not fulfilled. Emotional self-discipline isn't coldness, it's maturity. It's understanding that no one is obligated to be what you wish, but you are responsible for how you react when they're not. When you stop expecting and start observing, something shifts. Frustration turns into clarity, and clarity is the gateway to inner freedom. Maybe you're feeling disappointed in someone right now, thinking it's your fault for giving too much. But what if the mistake wasn't in trusting, but in idealizing? You didn't err by caring. You erred by expecting them to be who they never promised to be. And now you have a chance to step out of that trap. Because those who don't expect don't suffer disappointment, and those who don't suffer disappointment remain at peace. Next, let's talk about a virtue that sustains this peace even in chaos. Self-discipline as a shield against emotional impulsiveness. Seneca once said, "The greatest freedom is to be the master of yourself." This quote summarizes what many seek externally, but can only find internally. Peace. Self-discipline is not repression, it is protection. It is the art of not being dragged by every passing emotion. When you don't control yourself, anything can control you. But when you master yourself, nothing can break you. Imagine someone being publicly criticized. Every part of them wants to lash out, to defend, to restore pride. But instead, they take a deep breath and choose silence. Not because they swallowed their pride, but because they realized reacting would cost too much. That person used self-discipline as a shield, protecting themselves from offense, impulse, and unnecessary damage. The Stoic philosophy teaches that true strength isn't in striking back, it's in resisting the urge to strike. It's standing firm in the storm while keeping a clear mind. Self-discipline is like a muscle. The more you train it, the stronger it becomes. And the stronger you become, the less you need to prove anything. Your peace begins to speak for you. Most conflicts are fueled by a lack of emotional control. People say things they don't mean, do things they regret, and pay the price later. Self-discipline prevents the fall. It puts you in the place of choice, where you decide instead of reacting out of habit. That's the difference between living in constant battle and living in steady balance. Maybe you grew up believing that saying everything you feel is being authentic, but sometimes being authentic also means being wise enough to choose silence, not as cowardice, but as maturity. And that choice, over time, changes everything around you. Because those who discipline themselves strengthen themselves, and those who are strong inspire respect without needing to impose. In the next topic, we'll explore mental clarity as a compass through emotional chaos, the vision that guides the wise while the impulsive get lost. Epictetus said, "It is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows." This quote reveals what prevents us from evolving: inner confusion disguised as certainty. When under pressure, the mind tends to cloud. We judge poorly, decide in the heat of emotion, and later face the consequences. In such moments, mental clarity becomes a beacon. Imagine someone receiving a cold message from someone important. They instantly conclude, "This person is rejecting me." From that thought, they act impulsively, confront, accuse, pull away. But everything was based on a rushed interpretation. Lack of clarity breeds chaos. And inner chaos turns into an unnecessary storm that could have been avoided with one step: pausing to think. Stoicism teaches that not everything we feel is true, and what we feel doesn't have to become a reaction. When we build the habit of breathing before concluding, we see beyond emotion. Clarity doesn't erase the feeling, it filters the exaggeration, and filtering is key to deciding with wisdom. Without clarity, we're slaves to impulse. With clarity, we become masters of ourselves. Clarity is a form of self-love, caring for the mind like a sacred temple, not letting it be invaded by assumptions, fears, or distorted thoughts. A clear mind doesn't rush to defend itself. It watches, understands, reflects, and this reflection saves energy, prevents conflict, and preserves relationships. Maybe you're feeling confused right now, unsure whether to respond, walk away, or say something. But what if the answer is none of those? What if the answer is to wait until the fog clears before making any move? Those who act with clarity don't live in regret later. With this new vision, we move on to a vital point: the difference between reacting from ego and acting with purpose. Let's now explore how emotional strength is built when you stop being driven by pride. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." This quote cuts through every attempt to justify impulsive reactions driven by ego. Pride is a trap that disguises fragility as strength. It screams, "You can't let this slide." But the wise mind responds, "I can, because I'm not ruled by this." True emotional strength begins where ego ends. Picture someone who's humiliated publicly. Everything inside them demands justice, to retaliate, expose, win. But instead, they stay quiet. Not out of fear, but because they know that reacting from ego only makes things worse. They choose not to mirror the offender, and in doing so, rise above the conflict. Their calm becomes their strength. Their conscious choice lifts them higher. The Stoic lesson is clear. Acting with purpose is wisdom. Reacting out of pride is emotional slavery. The ego wants to win now, but emotional strength seeks lasting peace. When you choose not to respond to provocation, you're not backing down, you're rising above. That silent victory is more powerful than any argument. Self-discipline here means humility too. It's knowing you don't have to win every external battle if it costs you an internal war. Each time you choose to act with purpose instead of impulse, you defeat the most dangerous enemy, your own ego. That quiet triumph strengthens you more than 1,000 heated wins ever could. Maybe you've recently felt wronged, and the sting of injustice still lingers. But ask yourself, is it worth carrying the weight of an empty reaction just to soothe your ego for a few minutes? Or is it more valuable to choose peace as your shield? Now that you understand this shift, it's time to explore another essential Stoic key: how to use time as an ally to restore balance and regain control when everything seems on the verge of collapse. Epictetus said, "If you want to be invincible, don't fight against everything." This quote holds a powerful secret. Not everything needs to be answered right away. The urgency to react is a trap of ego and emotion. When we use time as a filter, we gain clarity, save energy, and avoid regret. Time is the teacher that instructs without haste. Imagine someone who receives an offensive message on their phone. The impulse is to respond instantly, fueled by anger and sharp words. But instead, they decide to wait. They go for a walk, breathe, reflect. And when they return, the urgency has faded. They see the situation with new eyes. Maybe they don't even respond, because now they realize it wasn't worth their peace. Stoic philosophy teaches us to slow down reaction in order to speed up wisdom. Time gives us back the power to choose, and those who choose calmly choose better. Emotions are like waves. If you ride them with awareness, they pass. But if you dive into them unprepared, you drown. The space between stimulus and response is where your freedom lives. Self-discipline also means knowing how to wait. It's not cowardice, it's strategy. A wise warrior doesn't attack in a fit of rage. He waits for the right moment, or decides it's not even worth it. And often the smartest battle is the one you choose not to enter at all. Maybe you've reacted too quickly in recent situations. You said what you didn't mean, made decisions you now regret. But what if you had just waited a few hours? Everything might look different now. Time doesn't erase emotions, but it allows them to settle before they turn into action. With that awareness, we move on to one of the most underrated Stoic virtues, the courage to be firm without being harsh. Because staying calm under pressure also means knowing how to set boundaries with serenity. Seneca wrote, "True greatness is being able to endure adversity with calm." This quote reveals that staying calm doesn't mean being passive, it means being intentional. There's a silent firmness that commands respect without ever raising its voice. Being calm isn't being weak, it's having enough strength to stay centered while still making your position clear. Imagine someone pressured by family to make a decision that goes against their values. Everyone expects them to comply, to say yes just to keep the peace. But they look straight ahead, take a deep breath and say no. No yelling, no aggression, just calm conviction. And surprisingly, everyone listens, because their peace is non-negotiable and their posture is unshakable. Stoic philosophy teaches that self-control doesn't mean avoiding boundaries. It means setting them wisely. When we speak with firmness and without anger, we reach deeper than any outburst could. Calm, when used correctly, is sharper than any argument. It's the quiet presence of someone who knows their worth. Self-discipline here means learning to say enough with serenity. It's not allowing emotional space to be invaded, even when pressure comes with sweetness or guilt. Those who stay calm are not easily manipulated. They demand respect, because they know their peace is worth more than anyone's approval. Maybe you're facing something similar now, feeling cornered, pressured, yet unwilling to hurt anyone. Know that it's possible to be firm without being harsh. That you can keep your heart open and still protect your limits. That is wisdom. That is maturity. That is stoicism. You began this video feeling the weight of always living on the edge, as if each new pressure might push you into collapse. The anxiety, the conflicts, the exhaustion of trying to keep everything under control. But now something has shifted. You've realized you no longer have to react to everything. There is a quiet path where the mind becomes your shield and your heart stays whole. Stoic philosophy doesn't ask you to be cold, it asks you to be wise. To choose calm when everything around you is noise. To master your emotions not by suppressing them, but by realizing that not every pain deserves a reaction. You don't have to defeat others. You have to defeat yourself. That's the victory that transforms your world without changing anything, except your perception of it. If you've made it this far, comment, "I choose Stoic strength." That shows you're no longer led by impulse, but by awareness. Subscribe to the channel to keep walking this journey of practical wisdom, mental mastery, and emotional freedom. Because when calm is cultivated deeply, it becomes your greatest silent revolution.